Welcome back to Robinson Actual. Let's get into what makes an AR-15 not suck. What makes a high quality AR-15 high quality? And don't worry about having to memorize anything. I'm gonna put a graphic on the screen that you can screenshot, and it'll be kind of a tier list that you can reference. And there's only gonna be two kinds of tiers on this channel. Some of them will call them mid-tier and high tier, but I'm gonna divide them by worthy of defending my life with, but geared towards affordability, with the higher tier being for if you're ready to put in some serious work, develop some serious skills, and get active when you're needed. Now, this is a sensitive topic for some people, believe it or not, but I don't really care. Some of the crappy advice out there is what we would refer to as copium. Now, copium is just a drug that makes people settle for less by helping them justify poor purchases. Copium is often synthesized through buyer's remorse. Now, copium is not to be confused with FUD lore. FUD lore is a mixture of your granddad's imagination, Hollywood, and people just simply giving bad, inexperienced advice. Here's some examples.
Let me tell you something, brother. Mil-spec is mil-spec. Believe it or not, all AR-15s are actually made out of one of the same 5 forges. That's how it works, bro. Long as it's in spec, you're good to go. They're literally all just metal that is made into different shapes, and you guys are paying really high prices just to have a different brand name milled on yours. You're literally just paying per logo. No, I don't need all that crap on my rifle. Just give me a quad rail with irons. That's all I really need. That's all I need. Couldn't afford the real fancy optic that I wanted to put on the rifle that I'm supposed to fight and defend my life with. So I just bought a Chinese clone of it, but I saw a Reddit thread that said that they actually source their glass from the same place that Aimpoint does. I only wanted to dedicate about $600 to the rifle that I'm going to trust my life to, because I can't afford a really nice rifle. I've done that 6 times now. Aimpoint Neotech? No, not if it ain't issued to me. Just get on the Amazon and look up Holosun. It's the same thing but cheaper. It's just as good. It's actually pronounced Holosun, and my sight mark is of comparable quality.
So those are just a few examples of the kind of crap you're gonna hear to combat the stuff that I'm about to say. And like I've said many times before, I don't have some kind of cool guy resume to back up my opinions. However, when it comes to specifically the quality of AR-15s, I'd like to cite my own experience on the basis of me doing more dumbass stuff in the gun world than the average gun owner. I was a clueless 18-year-old with my Chinese plate carrier to go with my $30 lower that I color filled with a crayon, and then proceeded to put an Amazon optic on and believed that I was somehow good to go with that setup. It paired nicely with the 30-year-old Milsurp assault pack that I had a bunch of MREs stuffed into, like that's what was going to save my life. I've also purchased and then sold off just about every gimmicky meme gun there is out there. And I'm not talking about the cool guy meme guns like the MP7s or the P90s. Those are still cool. So I'm not going to speak on all rifles. I'm going to speak specifically about the AR-15 platform. When it comes to judging the manufacturer of an AR-15, I like to break it down in 3 categories. One being the materials and metallurgy involved with the manufacturing process. 2 being quality control. And 3 being customer service. That's basically, what are they made out of? How good is the manufacturer at ensuring that nothing out of spec leaves their factory? And how do they react when something goes wrong? So first off, let's talk about metallurgy. You do not want a rifle that's made out of melted down license plates from Pakistan. A great example of crappy metallurgy is my buddy's Hi-Point Yeet cannon. He actually picked up 2 of those Yeet cannons when they came out and gave me one of them. And when he went and got his milled for an optic, his machinist sent him a picture of the slide, which is what you're looking at here. Now, there should only be those mounting holes that are symmetrical with each other and look like they should be there. All those other little holes are air bubbles in the metal, essentially. Now, unless you have X-ray vision or the resources to test a rifle in this way, you're not going to be able to see exactly what kind of defects are in that metal. So that's just one of the many reasons of why higher-end AR-15s cost more. It's because the material costs more. And that's what you want in an AR-15, is high-quality materials. Another point to make on the materials used is the type of aluminum the receivers are milled from. They're mostly going to be 6061 T6 aluminum or 7075 T6 aluminum. The 7075 is just going to be stronger to make it easy on you. Now, aside from the receivers, the type of steel being used and all the little parts and pins and gadgets in these things, that's a huge factor as well. The barrels are usually either 4140 or 4150 carbon steel, and the bolt carrier groups can be either 8620 or 9310 steel. And remember, I'm talking about the most common, what you're most likely to run into scenarios. There's all kinds of specialty brands and they make carbon fiber, this and that, you know. But we're just gonna talk about the most common stuff you're gonna run into. So now we understand exactly what you're paying for when you're paying for a more expensive rifle, you're paying for more expensive materials. And then you might ask, well, why can't a lower end brand just use expensive materials and price the rifle lower and that be good to go? Well, that brings us into our next category of judgment, which is quality control. Now, quality control has a lot of factors to it. Some manufacturers can put out a ton of parts consistently without having quality control issues, like Bravo Company, for example. Now, the thing about quality control and being aware of it is that you really just have to keep up on the consumer side of the market. You just have to keep up with the reviews and what people are talking about in forums, especially when it comes to guns. Now, quality control goes a lot deeper than just making sure the paint's right, or the anodizing rather. Every single little detail about the measurements, from the pinhole sizes to where the pins are, to the little slots, where the springs go in, every little detail matters, because if it's out of spec, your rifle will not run properly. If your hammer pinhole was drilled at a slightly wrong angle, it will offset your hammer so that it doesn't engage properly on the firing pin, and you'll have issues. If your fire control group pins are too far apart from each other, the disconnector won't always engage, and sometimes you might have a 3-round burst go off on you. If the hole for the selector switch isn't right and it doesn't engage the safety properly, that's a safety hazard. And this translates to literally every square inch of the AR-15. So when you're judging on quality control, the question really is, how much do you want to gamble? Do you really want to take a chance at you got a good one, or got one of the 10% that aren't good, or 5% that aren't good? Or do you just want to skip the trial and error part and just ensure that you're good to go? Now that brings me to my third point of judgment on AR-15s, which is customer service. At the end of the day, we are just humans who are sourcing natural materials in order to turn them into machines. And no matter how much you try to perfect that whole process, stuff goes wrong down the line. So once you've got peak metallurgy and materials used, you've got peak quality control, you still have that factor of human error. But when that factor is at play, how do they respond? For example, Geisley Automatics. They will respond to your Facebook post in a random gun group if they see that you're having an issue with their rifle. They want to know exactly what happened, they want every detail, and they're jumping right on top of it. They've got an entire team of engineers ready to fix whatever the problem could possibly be, and it's usually user error. That's the same case with PWS, Silencer Co., LWRC, Daniel Defense, and I could probably list 10, 15 more. And remember, on this channel, we are going for mid-tier or higher, and that is it. I'm not interested in anything below mid-tier because a mid-tier grade rifle is simply just a rifle that's going to function and checks all three of the boxes we talked about, but doesn't have to be some $5,000 investment. It can actually be somewhat affordable. A lot of times you can buy them used, you can buy them blemished from the factory, but when you buy blim parts from a firearms manufacturer, they're not sending out parts that are out of spec by any means, especially not Geisley. They're discounting blim parts that have issues with the paint job, essentially, the anodizing. A lot of people in the scene, they don't want a single speck out of place on that anodizing. I'm going to scratch it up my first time taking it to the range, so I don't care. But when you're a high-end brand like Geisley, they've got standards to meet. So what they do is they mark their blemished parts with what they call Count Blimula. I doubt you'll be able to make this out on camera, but it's just right down there on the magwell. So that's just their way of making sure people aren't reselling their blemished parts as good to go, perfectly, Geisley standard parts. A couple other little details if you're just now getting into AR-15s. I do not recommend getting an ambidextrous AR for your first AR. You need to get good at actuating the mil-spec bolt catch before you worry about changing it up with the ambi bolt catch. So I hope you found this video helpful. I'm gonna try to shorten them as much as I can. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about AR-15s alone, but I'm gonna try to break this down into multiple videos. And hopefully it's organized enough that you can actually learn a little bit and compare what I'm saying to what some real hardcore professionals say. In the next video, we're gonna get into how to set up your rifle for home defense. Now, with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and just give you a simple tier list that you can screenshot and just kind of shop off of. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.